This is a very, very tricky circuit. 77 laps, and it's mostly twisting, like the bit that you can see now. 77 laps is going to take at least an hour and 3/4. You've heard what the temperature is. The air temperature, as I talk to you, is 32 degrees. The track temperature has gone up to 44 degrees. Now remember that the drivers are wearing Nomex underwear, long johns, long sleeve vests, 3-layer protective overalls on top, balaclava helmets, a helmet, the racing boots, the gloves. They're sitting in a very constricted cockpit. The cockpit temperatures are probably going to be about 50 degrees for an hour and 3/4 while you're trying to get in front of the man ahead of you. Stop the man behind you from getting past you. Stop somebody from sidling through on the inside. It is an enormously physical circuit. It is terribly difficult to pass on, but there is a man who's got the drop on all of the rest of them. Michael Schumacher starting in pole position for the 5th time this year. But remember what happened to him in Germany 2 weeks ago. He got punted off by Fisichella. Remember what happened to him in Austria 4 weeks ago. He got punted off by Ricardo Zonta. Remember what happened to him in France. His engine blew up. Remember what happened to him at Monaco. His rear suspension got cooked by a cracked exhaust pipe. Totally unpredictable what is going to happen in this race. All that you can say at the present moment is that the two fastest men this year in Hungary are up at the front on the grid. Michael Schumacher in that pole position, 0.6 of a second faster than the pole position time last year, which was that of Mika Häkkinen. You can say too that David Coulthard has out-qualified again Mika Häkkinen, who was so much the top man of 1999 in terms of being up at the front of the grid. And what a sensational, and I use the word advisedly, performance from Ralf Schumacher, 4th on the grid in the Williams BMW, admittedly with the advantage of a special qualifying engine, which his teammate Jenson Button did not have, by the way, and he's 8th on the grid. So it is a totally unpredictable event. You've heard a lot from James, Alan and others about strategies. Remember that although they can go through on one stop and are more likely to have two, Michael Schumacher had that sensational victory in 1998 in the Ferrari when he had 3 stops and put on an absolutely fantastic centre stint. What's going to happen, Maestro?
Well, 3 stops is the fastest way to go, but of course that then leaves you overtaking at some point in the race a fast 2-stopper. Last year they stopped between 28 and 30, the main runners, laps 28 and 30, and again then around lap 55, 56, something like that. I'd be surprised if it's any different today. I don't really see that the teams have to change their strategy to fight each other too much today. I think it's a pretty straightforward race. The start is critical, as we've already covered. And Häkkinen's got a problem, though. I don't think his car's working still how he wanted. They were changing it before the warm-up, during the warm-up, I think going to the grid. But knowing Mika, he'll have it together somehow when it matters. So Coulthard's on the dirty side of the track. He's got to get away well. I think Michael Schumacher shouldn't have a problem being into the first corner first, but he needs to watch out for Mika Häkkinen coming between the pair of them. He seems to have had the start hooked up, his clutch action and the way he applies the power seems to be more consistent than his main championship rivals. So the start is critical, as we've covered, and then it'll just be settling in for what looks like a long and very, very hot afternoon.
And so say all of us. 800 horsepower and a clutch about the size of your clenched fist. Bit of a new fashion here at the Hungaro ring. Look for the chimneys on the side pods of the McLarens. Well, Ferrari have got them for the first race, and so have the 2 Williams cars. And we're riding now with Ralf Schumacher, or we were, as into turn 1. It's 180 degrees, a very long falling right-hander. By the way, Johnny Herbert had to come in and change cars. You can see him in the Jaguar with the red helmet in the background. Now you've got the start of the climb up to turn 5. They do about 175 miles an hour on the way up, and you've seen it all from the cockpit.
Yes, it's a great track. I hear a lot about this being Mickey Mouse, but most of the drivers really enjoy this racetrack. It's quite a challenge. It's never ceasing in terms of work rate behind the wheel. And I think we've always had some exciting times around it. So easy to fall off the road with a silly mistake. We're on board with Eddie Irvine on that very corner last year. He ran wide, allowing Coulthard to go through and take that second place. So it's so easy later on in the race to make a simple mistake. And it's like Monaco here. I was talking to Lacey about this yesterday. You've been going for what seems an eternity, and they hang you a board out that says 50 laps to go, and you think you must be getting near the end, and it just takes the wind out of your sails a little bit.
Well, Herbert is still in the race car, incidentally. They fixed it. Incidentally, you coined the phrase for the Hungaroring, did you not, Martin? Just like Monaco without the houses?
I think I probably did, and it's certainly how it feels as you go uphill and down dale and always seem to be trying to get the nose of the car into a slow corner, and really no straight worth its name where you can get a run on anybody.
Well, Rubens Barrichello followed by Heinz-Harald Frentzen in respectively the scarlet Ferrari and the yellow Jordan go round the last 180-degree right-hander. They take that at an apex speed of about 80 miles an hour before accelerating up to 180 miles an hour. We're back again with Ralf Schumacher, who will peel off to the right in a minute. He's starting on the dirty side of the track. There goes Mika Häkkinen ahead of him, so we've got Michael Schumacher up front, David Coulthard next to him. Watch Mika Häkkinen. Remember how he sprinted between Schumacher and Coulthard at the beginning of the German Grand Prix.
And all the drivers, well, most of them had any brains anyway, on the right-hand side of the grid, were coming out of that last corner and sweeping right in front and around their particular grid slot to try to hoover up that side of the track in the morning warm-up.
So 77 very, very tiring laps. 2 lights on, 3 lights on, 4 lights on, 5 laps on. Out and go, out and go. Schumacher gets away well. Häkkinen is ahead of Coulthard, and Coulthard is being passed by Ralf Schumacher as well. Down into the first right-hander and through the McLaren goes into the lead. That is an incredible start by Mika Häkkinen. He did it in Germany, he's done it again. He's passed Schumacher. David Coulthard is in 3rd position, and Ralf Schumacher is still in 4th place, followed by Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan. So another sensational start for Mika Häkkinen. Now, does this mean to say that the Finn is on a long strategy, on light fuel to let him get away? We expected that with Michael Schumacher. I didn't expect it with Häkkinen.
I don't think he is, Murray. I think he's just, as we said before the race started, Häkkinen has aced it with regard to the clutch, and somebody's off there, somebody's lost the nose of their car. It's the BAR of Villeneuve has lost the front wing, but Häkkinen just hooks up, and he seems to get into 2nd gear better too. Schumacher away reasonably well, Coulthard an appalling start, but Häkkinen seems to be able to build momentum and keep it going more quickly and more strongly than the other 2 competitors.
Well, the first 7 cars are the 7 that were on the grid up front, but there's a change right at the front because Mika Häkkinen leads Michael Schumacher. And Michael Schumacher's got a tussle on his hands now because it is so difficult to get past on this track, and Mika Häkkinen is not about to move over.
So blistering one from Häkkinen, he's certainly keeping that. Now watch, Coulthard just bogged down, didn't get away at all. Oh, they've cut away from that replay, and Häkkinen just literally sprinted between the pair of them, and seems like he gets into 2nd gear. Maybe he pulls it a little bit later than the others and just keeps building acceleration. Then Coulthard had to keep really tight around the outside of Ralf Schumacher and managed to get track position down into turn 2. Critical move there for Coulthard. It keeps him in touch with these 2 pace setters. But I think Schumacher will undoubtedly have a faster car than Mika Häkkinen in the race. There goes the nose of Villeneuve. He's run into the back of De La Rosa in the arrows, and we don't know if he's done any damage to that arrows.
And they're both in the pits. There is the BAR getting a new nose cone, but it's destroyed the race for Jacques Villeneuve, who of course won it here in 96 and 97 in the Williams.
And De La Rosa in the pit too, so maybe he did get some damage to his rear tire. De La Rosa you saw smoking away behind the picture there of Villeneuve.
But look at this, the 3 top men in the World Championship, the 2 McLarens sandwiching Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Coulthard, and they're breaking away now because Ralf Schumacher is a bit of a roadblock. There's a gap behind Coulthard, and then it is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW. David Coulthard is the fastest man on the track at the moment, and Rubens Barrichello is bottled up by Ralf Schumacher's Williams BMW. Barrichello in the the second Ferrari, and he's not even looking like getting past him.
No, Coulthard fastest in the warm-up this morning, Hakkinen off the pace. The two Ferraris really just about matching Coulthard's pace, so it doesn't surprise me to see that Hakkinen cannot make a break for it, Murray.
So the question now, and it's very early in the race, of course, we're on lap 3 out of 77 laps, is what about the strategies? When are they going to come in and take on more fuel and new Bridgestone tyres? All I can tell you at the moment is that David Coulthard, he keeps on accelerating and closing up to David Coulthard. He's put up the fastest lap. Here's the replay now. There is Michael Schumacher getting away. Watch Mika Hakkinen behind the Ferrari. David Coulthard almost bogs down. Ralf Schumacher gets his nose ahead, but David Coulthard fights back, and Mika Hakkinen goes through on the inside of turn 1, just as Rubens Barrichello did in the Stewart last year to make up places. That is where Hakkinen was absolutely brilliant right at the start, as he was at Hockenheim.
Yes, look at the back of Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher there. They were incredibly close to touching, but managed to get away with it. And now Hakkinen has pulled a slight advantage and does a very, very fast lap, 6/10 faster than Schumacher. Whether Schumacher made a mistake while we were having that replay at the start, I don't know. But Hakkinen and Coulthard very low, 1 minute 22.1 for Hakkinen, 22.7 for Schumacher, 23.2 for David Coulthard. So I don't know what's going on there.
Fastest lap last year, David Coulthard, 1 minute 20.7, so he's about 1.5 seconds slower now, but with a pretty heavy fuel load at the beginning of the race.
Well, the two McLaren started the race with brand new sticker front tyres, and they seem to have, certainly Hakkinen has brought those in and making them work very well as we head around halfway now around lap 4.
So on lap 4, Mika Hakkinen leads Schumacher. Coulthard is third. Ralf Schumacher is still fourth, and he's nearly 4 seconds behind the lead car at the present moment. Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari is fifth ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, just 0.8 of a second. Seventh is Fisichella, eighth is Jenson Button, ninth is Eddie Irvine, who's gained a place. Wurz is 10th, and James Allen has got news.
Murray, the significance of the new tyres on the McLarens is, of course, that they do tend to go off about the second to the fifth laps. We've seen that throughout the weekend, these super soft Bridgestones. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello both started on tyres which had been bedded in, so Michael has got to attack in these next 2 or 3 laps. He doesn't have any chance of getting past Mika, because after that, Mika's tyres will start to come back to him. I saw Mika making big changes on the grid to the front end of the car. He was obviously unhappy with it, but seems to be working okay for him at the moment.
Well, Eddie Irvine has done well. He's gone ahead of Mika Salo, who started on the grid before him, and the Jaguar is now in 9th position, well in the top 10. Alexander Wurz in the Benetton is in 10th position, and Mika Salo, who has been going so well in the Sauber, as has his teammate Pedro Diniz. They've been going much better here at the Hockenheim ring, at the Ankara ring, than they have done before, and they are now in respectively 11th and 12th places as we watch the race leaders, with Mika Hakkinen increasing his speed all the time. He's now leading Michael Schumacher by 1.2 seconds. You can see the lead stretching all the time.
Yes, what's happened is you've seen Michael Schumacher fall away and Coulthard fall away by the same amount. I think those first 2 or 3 laps tucked up in the slipstream of Hakkinen's McLaren has probably done some damage to their tyres. Hakkinen there understeering quite badly, as it happens through 11 and 12, but Hakkinen now clearly has the superior pace through the middle section, the critical slow part of this racetrack with all the little left rights and just 60-70 mile an hour corners, and he's going to extend that lead this lap yet again.
Well, interesting, because during the warm-up this morning he was 1.2 seconds off the pace. You're right, Martin, it's now 1.5 seconds between Hakkinen in the lead and Schumacher in second place. And Hakkinen was testing different fuel loads this morning. It certainly seems to have worked, because look at him now.
Yes, but he's only, he is pulling the leader. He's 2 to 3 tenths faster than Schumacher and Coulthard. That doesn't suggest he's on a 3-stopper, for example. It's not enough of a time difference. Maybe he could be running a bit lighter, but I'll be surprised if he's on anything other than a 2-stopper. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's so confusing these days. They can bring him in early, bring him in late. For instance, last year, David Coulthard only stopped once, and he came in on lap 58 out of 77. We thought he was never going to come in. 4 out of the top 6 last year stopped twice. 2 out of the top 6, that's Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello, only stopped once. And now Mika Hakkinen 1.5 seconds clear of Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. There is the visual gap down to David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher is 3 seconds behind David Coulthard in the Williams BMW. He is still in 4th place. And now we've just got to let this race settle. Let the race come to the drivers. We're on lap 6. We're getting on towards 1/11th distance.
As Häkkinen murdering them in the middle sector of the lap again. A full 6/10 quicker than Coulthard and a 3/10 quicker than Schumacher, just in one section of this racetrack. Ralf Schumacher's holding there 4th place easily from Rubens Barrichello, who says this is not his best circuit. Frentzen 6th, Fisichella 7th, Button there running well in 8th, Eddie Irvine 9th, and Alexander Wirtz rounding out the top 10 just in front of the 2 Saubers of Salo and Dinitz.
Now you're looking at Eddie Irvine's Jaguar, and the good news is that it is slowly getting better. They've had and are going to continue to have a very rough time. We're riding with Irvine now, but Neil Ressler, the new top man at Jaguar, is not too unhappy with the way things are going. They know they've got an enormous amount of work to do. The Cosworth engine is very good, but it's the back end of the car, in particular, the handling of the car, that needs to be improved, and there's a lot of work to do on the infrastructure of the team. But Jaguar has put everything into Formula One, and they will get their reward eventually.
Yes, they could do with the result today, though, Murray. There's every boss of, for example, Nasser of Ford, Rietzler of Jaguar, and all of their sponsors, just about every Supremo that's involved with that car you're looking at is here today, and they certainly could do with putting on a show in front of that collection.
Look at Jenson Button behind Fisichella. Fisichella, there's the bit there, and there's Jenson Button, and there is Eddie Irvine.
Häkkinen won 20.895. Now he's on some kind of spectacular play. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That's more or less what he did in the warm-up this morning on his best effort. So Häkkinen has either got less fuel, or those changes they've been making all weekend to that car just suddenly hit the sweet spot.
Well, if he's got less fuel, that means to say he's going to have to come in early. He needs to get a...
And Irvine takes Button. I think Button ran wide into turn 1, and Irvine taking over that 8th place. I think Jensen got out as Fisichella recovers onto the track too. So maybe there's some fluid or something down there into turn 1, but Jensen Button out into that territory where there's almost no return, but he did manage to keep it on round the outside. Here we go, look, and it's Fisichella spinning off, Button sort of almost being sucked along and followed into Fisichella's track, and Eddie Irvine getting a run on the short straight down into turn 2.
So Irvine is where Fisichella was, and the answer is 7th place for the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine. There is Fisichella, you see, on the left, running very wide indeed, nearly losing it, going onto the grass. Jenson Button sees his front full of spinning Benetton, stays on the track. Eddie Irvine dives through on the right, and Mika Häkkinen is now leading by 3.1 seconds on lap 8 out of 77.
Yes, it seemed, if there's not oil on the track, it seemed as if Jensen almost got a bit of tunnel vision there and followed Fisichella onto the wide line, but managed to keep it together. So Irvine jumping 2 places then, as you say, up into 7th place.
McLaren leads, Ferrari 2nd, McLaren 3rd. Looking good for Woking. Williams BMW is 4th and Ferrari is 5th. Rubens Barrichello is 1.4 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher's Williams BMW, and the Brazilian seemingly cannot do anything about it. He's not right up tight behind the Williams BMW. He needs to be, because he needs to be pressuring Ralf Schumacher, and David Coulthard is now on a really quick lap. He's gone through the first sector of this course, which is 2.5 miles long, faster than anybody else has gone. A 1/10 of a second, that's not very much, but if you keep on piling up an increase like that, you can close right on the car in front. And at the present moment, he's 1.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. And just look at the way that Mika Häkkinen is forcing that car. Like Imola, you have to really use the curbs here at the Hungaroring, and that may have phased Jenson Button a bit when he first came in, but he's really attacked now.
Yes, Häkkinen attacking so much there, he really had to fight the car to get it into the last corner, and that's a very easy corner to spin on. So Mika sensationally attacking the racetrack, trying to build himself an advantage, but struggling there in that last corner. The car generally looks very, very good. Occasionally you see it pick up an awful lot of understeer, which will wear his front tyres more than necessary.
And it just shows in Formula One you can never ever give up. Michael Schumacher had an enormous lead in the championship earlier on, so much so that people were saying it was all over, but it's never over until it's over. And Mika Häkkinen, who has won 2 races this year, Spain and Austria, to Michael Schumacher's 5, and here is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR, diving through and passing the arrows of Pedro de la Rosa and going through. Remember, he came in together.
Yes, they're fighting for last place, effectively. They tripped over each other on the first lap, so Villeneuve takes 21st from de la Rosa, but now a brake pedal problem apparently, so spongy brakes in the Prost.
Poor John Alesi,
that's Alesi's car, so now at least Villeneuve's up to 20th place. And look, Häkkinen now catching de la Rosa already to lap him. Of course, they both had to stop at the end of the first lap, de la Rosa and Villeneuve.
Well, now de la Rosa should see the silver and black McLaren coming up in his mirrors and move over. If he doesn't, if he delays Mika Häkkinen, obviously it's going to give Michael Schumacher the opportunity to close up, and he needs to be doing so because it's now 4.3 seconds, and de la Rosa lets Mika Häkkinen dive through on the inside of turn 1, drop down into turn 2, right-handed turn 3, start to climb up 175 miles an hour on the approach to the kink at turn 4, and then brake hard down to about 85 miles an hour for the 3rd gear right-hand turn 5 that they're coming to now. And it looks as though Jean Alesi's, I was going to say his race is run, but they've got the wheel on. And Alesi was in doubt about starting this race after that tremendous shunt that he had at Hockenheim with Pedro Deniz's Sauber. It affected the Frenchman for quite a long time. He couldn't sleep for 3 nights, but he's got himself together again now, and he's fighting as he always does, and as Mika Häkkinen does. And so now, lap 11, 66 laps to go. So, Martin, let's postulate what might be happening. Maybe Mika Häkkinen is on a lighter fuel load. I can't believe that there's that much difference between Häkkinen's McLaren and Michael Schumacher's Ferrari for the Finn to have been able to build a 5-second lead on lap 12 out of 77 without there being some car difference.
Well, certainly the kind of, I said earlier on in the race that there wasn't enough between them to suggest different fuel loads, but now we are seeing that kind of difference, 0.7 of a second per lap. So we'll know soon enough. I reckon if Mika goes much past lap 20, 21, then we know that he is indeed carrying a full and fair fuel load. It'll mean he has to just stop the twice.
Well, we'll see. We're watching Michael Schumacher now scything his way past Pedro de la Rosa, as Mika Häkkinen has already done. So the arrows, which has been in after it's coming together with Jacques Villeneuve, has already been lapped by the first 2 and is about to be lapped by David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher is still holding that 4th place in the Williams BMW, 1.6 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari, and 6th is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Eddie Irvine just 1 place off the points in the Jaguar, 7th position, followed by Jenson Button, and David Coulthard turns in. Now we're looking at Alesi's helmet,
pushing the car out of the race,
and he's out of the race. So that is the first retirement out of the 22 starters. I thought Johnny Herbert was going to have to be starting from the pit lane when he changed cars, but they got his previous car fixed and he started on the grid. So watch Mika Häkkinen leading on lap 13. Lap 13 out of 77 at the Hungaroring, and the meteoric Mika Häkkinen that you are looking at is now nearly 5.5 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Jean Alesi, the Frenchman in the Prost car, is out of the race, the only retirement we have had so far. And David Coulthard is again forcing and closing on Michael Schumacher.
Well, Coulthard's got to pick up the pace. While you're away, he had a bad run through the traffic. He caught De La Rosa in the fast part of the lap, and lost well over a second on that lap. So the gap back to from Schumacher to Coulthard, second and third, is now 2.3 seconds. So David's got to get back on and try and close that gap down. So apparently Lacey, the early reports were he had brake problems. Apparently it was actually a steering problem, maybe in the hydraulic system. All of these cars run power steering now. Some of them electronic power steering, others hydraulic. But whatever, Lacey, as you say, Murray, is out of the race. And now, for the first time, both Schumacher and Coulthard are faster than Mika Häkkinen for the first time in this race.
And Mika Häkkinen is closing up on Jacques Villeneuve, who's 20th. And last but one, having been in the previous 2 times winner, Jacques Villeneuve from Canada, driving the BAR Honda, which just does not seem to suit this circuit. He didn't qualify well, he went better in the warm-up period this morning, but he started down in 16th position on the grid. And that was in the car where he has been doing so much better this year. He's had 2 4th places. There is Villeneuve, there is Mika Häkkinen. There's virtually a full lap between them. And Jacques Villeneuve will move over and let Mika Häkkinen through. He'll know perfectly well that there's no point in trying to stop him getting past, because Mika Häkkinen is nearly a full lap ahead of him and over 5 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is 2.5 seconds ahead of David Coulthard. Over the line goes Häkkinen. He is now on his 15th lap.
Yes, a lot of understeering now, McLaren still. It's building slowly, so depends. We're going to have to wait until very early 2021 to see if Häkkinen comes in, see if he is running a lower fuel load, but meanwhile he's picking up some understeer, and now Schumacher and Coulthard are pegging him and slightly reducing his advantage. Now 4.9 seconds, but Schumacher is behind Häkkinen.
And Lacey, as I talk to you, is rejoining the Hungarian Grand Prix. They've fixed whatever the problem was. We now have no retirements, I'm glad to say, and you can see that Mika Häkkinen is carving his way through the field. He's losing time, but of course Michael Schumacher, who is catching him at the present moment very slowly as a result of Mika Häkkinen losing time in traffic, is going to then have to pass those cars himself. He's going to have to pass Jacques Villeneuve. He's going to have to pass Marc Genet, who is the next target for Mika Häkkinen as he comes down to the bottom chicane, turns into the second gear, 55 mile an hour, turn 13, up to the double right-hander, turn 14, 15, which completes the lap. He's going to go through into his 16th lap. Michael Schumacher had got the gap down to 4.9 seconds on the previous lap. Mika Häkkinen has had that little bit of slowing because of traffic. How far is Michael Schumacher behind him now? And the answer is 0.2 of a second more behind him, 5.1 seconds. There is the German. Well, I am at a loss for this, to be quite honest with you. I'm expecting, therefore, Mika Häkkinen to come in earlier.
Michael Schumacher also running very wide now in turn 2. Bit too late on the brakes, and Michael just clinging on, tiptoeing around the outside of where there's any grip in turn 2, and just managed to stay out of the grey on the outside, which would have meant a little trip across the grass. So Michael also struggling for grip now, and Mika has just done a stunning first section time, 25.5. Now remember from yesterday, Murray, that was the hot ticket for pole position for Michael Schumacher, the section time that Häkkinen's just done on the first part of the lap you're now watching.
Absolutely. Well, Michael Schumacher there as Fisichella comes into the pits in the Benetton, and he's down in 16th position. Michael Schumacher must, from his point of view, get points in this race. He's still leading the World Championship, amazingly, by 2 points from Coulthard and Häkkinen, who are both tying on the same number of points, 54 of them. But Schumacher's got to get points in this race if he's to keep his World Championship hopes alive.
Fisichella, who's spun twice already in this race, complaining of lack of rear grip, and he stopped just to have some new tyres to try to fix the problem, and he's about to have the silver McLaren bearing down on him to lap him. Just 17 laps into this race, and a new fastest lap for Häkkinen, a 1:20.6. Amazing where Häkkinen has found this speed. He looked totally lost in the warm-up this morning.
Yes, it is quite incredible. He's in right centre. You can never ignore the flying Finn, as he signs himself. And he's very much on a charge at the present moment. 16 Grand Prix World Championship wins behind him already. 2 World Championships. there were people who thought earlier this year that Mika Häkkinen, having won the World Championship not once but twice, had lost his motivation. He's certainly giving the lie to that belief now as he laps Fisichella and goes through. More news from James Allen.
Well, a sense of calm prevailing down at Ferrari, surprisingly enough. I can understand you're surprised at the pace of Häkkinen, but I was just looking back to a conversation I had yesterday with Ron Dennis of McLaren, and he said, you know, tomorrow, James, we're going to cover whatever Schumacher can do. We're comfortable, but we're not going to send those drivers out to be selfish. We're going to send them out to do a team job for us, and that means they're going to be doing different things to cover whatever Michael may do. And that's what I think is going on here. I don't think there's a lot less fuel in Häkkinen's car. I just think he's driving the wheels off that car at the moment, but for sure there's a slight variation in what he's doing, what Schumacher's doing, and what Coulthard is doing, and that variation could well lead to the result of the race at the end.
Things very static at the front, to be quite honest with you. Michael Schumacher is still just over 6.3, 6.4 seconds behind the leader, but he's staying ahead of David Coulthard. And now Ralf Schumacher, as Coulthard starts to go through the traffic, is closing marginally from 4th position in the Williams BMW on the McLaren in front of him and easing away from Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher is actually lapping about 0.4 of a second faster than Barrichello in the Ferrari in 5th place. Frentzen is still holding 6th position, Eddie Irvine is still 7th.
There's a bit of traffic ahead of Michael Schumacher, but I hear what you're saying, James, but unless Häkkinen pits in the next 2 or 3 laps, and Michael can carry on for another 4, 5, 6 laps after that, Häkkinen's giving absolutely nothing away. He's out there racing and he's leading the Grand Prix on speed and merit at this point, unless he has to pit in the very near future.
Now we should see something, because remember, Häkkinen has passed Villeneuve and Schumacher there is catching the Canadian in 20th position in the BAR and gets the advantage of the straight. Jacques Villeneuve moves over. Schumacher loses no time at all there, that will have helped him. Now ahead of him there's Fisichella in the Benetton, who has just rejoined the race. I would expect the Italian to move over and let Michael Schumacher through similarly. But meantime, the gap is 6.5 seconds. Mika Häkkinen leading by 6.5 seconds. Very reliable, this race. No retirements. Alesi's been in, but now he has, as I talk to you, he has retired from the Hungarian Grand Prix. 21 still running.
Bit of chat in the press, in the Italian press. Fisichella moving easily out of the way. Remember, those two tangled at the start of the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim. But Fisichella being lapped in this instance, giving no problems whatsoever. And now it's down to Coulthard to clear those 2 cars. So Häkkinen leads by 6.5 seconds now over Schumacher, who's 3.3 ahead of David Coulthard. Ralf Schumacher further 7 seconds down the road. Barrichello 1.6 behind Ralf Schumacher, and Frentzen another 7.3 seconds behind Barrichello. So the top 6 fairly well strung out.
And here's a bit of background news for you as things are at the front. You've just heard from Martin. I have every reason to believe that Jenson Button has now officially signed to drive for Benetton next year. In the same way, Olivier Panis will be with the BAR team in place of Ricardo Zonta. Mika Salo will be leaving Sauber and being the test driver for Toyota, who joined Formula One in the year 2002. And Mark Webber, the Australian, here is great news for the many of you I know view in Australia. Mark Webber has now been signed as the official tester for the Arrows team and is going to have a big session at Imola in the near future. Good luck to him. So Mika Häkkinen is still leading. Jacques Villeneuve has now got David Coulthard bearing down on it to lap him. Villeneuve moves the white BAR with the Honda engine over, and David Coulthard laps him, and David Coulthard is now 3.7 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. The leader, Häkkinen, is 11 seconds ahead of his teammate David Coulthard that you're looking at now. And Coulthard has again been caught marginally by Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW as a result of the traffic. We're on lap 20 out of 77, just about 25%, 1/4 distance completed for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And at the present moment, if they stay where they are now, Mika Häkkinen will move into the lead of the World Championship for the first time this year, but there's still 3/4 of the race to run. And of course, McLaren similarly are in a very strong position in the Constructors' Championship at the present moment. They're only 4 points behind Ferrari when this race began, and at the present moment they're on 14 World Championship points in comparison with 6 for Ferrari with Schumacher and 2 for Barrichello, so that's 8 points, 6 points gained by McLaren. They would similarly take the lead in the Constructors' Championship if the positions are held to the end of the race. But do I expect them to be? No, I do not. So things could be very different. Lap 21 then, and look at Mika Häkkinen looking as though his car is tethered to the apex of the bend by a piece of very stout chain as he hurtles round the bends. The G-forces are absolutely terrific. There are those chimneys on the side pods that I was talking about. Now we're into your window, Martin. We're on lap 21. Is Häkkinen going to come in? Is he on a light fuel load?
Well, no sign of activity. We're looking from our commentary box straight into the McLaren garage, and no sign of activity whatsoever in there at the moment. So Häkkinen carries on, and still he pulls another 3/10 of a second out of Michael Schumacher. The lead now up to 7.9, and Coulthard is the one struggling on pace. We know he's just had to clear that traffic, but Coulthard may be running long on fuel, but for whatever reason not showing. He's been fastest in every session with the exception of qualifying, hasn't he, where Häkkinen, Schumacher pipped him to pole, of course, but Coulthard, not showing the kind of pace we expected after the warm-up.
Well, so what is Michael Schumacher going to be saying if they stay where they are now at the end, when they're in the interviews? I had a problem with the car, my tyres went off, I lost the gear, the engine wasn't pulling power.
There's 56 laps to go yet, Murray. I think it's going to unfold, and we'll have the answers nearer the end of the race. But Häkkinen's car looks good, and he's certainly got an astonishing pace, lapping regularly in the 1:20s. The only driver who can get anywhere near that.
And he is up to Marc Genet, the Spanish driver in the Minardi, who moves over and lets Häkkinen lap him. Genet is in 17th position, and Mika Häkkinen now sets his sights on the arrows of Jos Verstappen, the lead arrows, because Pedro de la Rosa is in 21st position, Jos Verstappen is in 16th place, and we're riding now with Eddie Irvine in 7th position, and just 1.3 seconds ahead of Irvine, you can see the yellow Jordan Honda of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Now, Frentzen was 4th in last year's race. Jordans have not shown the promise, frankly, in the year 2000 that we expected them to do. They were 3rd in the Constructors' Championship last year. They're only 6th in the Constructors' Championship this year. They've only scored 11 World Championship points, and Eddie Irvine is more than holding Frentzen.
Yeah, this is a good effort here from Eddie Irvine, no doubt about it, to be pacing along there behind Frentzen.
Lap 23 we are on now, out of turn 5 at the top of the circuit. An enormous crowd here. They have apparently sold for the whole 3-day meeting, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, some 300,000 tickets in Hungary. We've got an enormous number of spectators from Germany, of course, supporting Michael Schumacher. And into the pits comes Nick Heidfeld, the German driver in the French Prost with the Peugeot engine. Peugeot out of Formula 1 at the end of this season in favour of AMT, Asian Motor Technologies, who've taken over their know-how. And Heidfeld has stalled the engine. He's 15th. Jos Verstappen has gone through, of course, and has taken that position from him, and it does not look at all good down there.
Yes, I don't think he stalled the engine. I think he just can't find a gear. Look, they're pushing him because the engine's running, but he's not selecting a cog in there. So Heidfeld with a box full of neutrals.
And if he's out of the race, that's both Prost, because Sean Alesi was the first to retire. There's still 21 cars left in the race if you include Heidfeld. who is going nowhere very slowly indeed. Well, he's going towards the end of the pit lane very slowly indeed, but it doesn't look as though he's going to get out of it under his own power.
Yes, the engine will be melting about now. Incredible temperatures. You can hear he was revving the engine, trying to get it into gear somehow. So now we're back on board with Häkkinen through the last corner onto the straight, and that'll be Zonta. He is now lapping, who is currently running in... where is Zonta, Murray? He's 14th.
Zonta's way down in 14th position. So Mika Häkkinen has lapped everybody up to Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar, who is in 13th place. Lap 25, and Nick Heidfeld struggling in the pit lane, watched by his team boss, the unfortunate Alain Prost, 4 times world champion, who must be ruining the day he ever decided to be a team owner. And Eddie Irvine comes in from what was 7th position, which is now occupied by Jenson Button. Irvine in the Jaguar, but there are no wheels being... and out he goes. So Button is now up into 7th position, ahead of Eddie Irvine. 9th is Wurz, 10th is Mika Salo, and the other Mika Häkkinen that you are looking at now, coming through to complete his 25th lap, staying out much longer than we thought he would if he had been on a light fuel load, which he presumably is not. Is now just under 7 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, having made the fastest lap of the race, which is faster by 0.4 of a second than David Coulthard's fastest lap last year.
That's absolutely incredible, a 1:20.268. That's 3/4 of a second quicker than Schumacher or Coulthard could turn, and he still hasn't come into the pits, confirming he is not on a light fuel load. So Häkkinen has just hooked that car up beautifully. James, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that Ross Brawn, the technical director at Ferrari, and Luca Baldisseri, Schumacher's race engineer, have been in very, very deep discussions for the last couple of laps. Ross is constantly talking to Michael on the radio as well, asking him what's the problem, and also thinking, what can we do to get ourselves out of this? I agree with you, Martin. I think Häkkinen is really, really on it today, and I think that's what's making the difference. Ferrari could try to put a light fuel load in Schumacher's car when he comes in 2 or 3 laps' time, but I can't really see what difference it's going to make. He just doesn't seem to have the car set up. If it was a tyre problem Schumacher had, he would probably have been in by now as well. It just looks like Häkkinen's got it at the moment.
Yes, if they try and put a light fuel load in, they can maybe save 2 seconds on the pit stop and another 2 with a fantastic in and out lap from Schumacher or something, but that will still leave Häkkinen, who's 7.6 seconds down the road, clearly in the lead. So it's all laying in McLaren and particularly Mika Häkkinen's hands at the moment. They are controlling this motor race.
Johnny Herbert 13th in the Jaguar. He's being caught and about to be lapped by Mika Häkkinen. Here is the 2nd place man, Michael Schumacher, dropping back. It's 9 seconds now. Mika Häkkinen is indeed driving an absolute blinder of a race as David Coulthard goes through. Now look down and you'll see Ralf Schumacher. We haven't seen much of him as Villeneuve goes through, but here is the battle for 4th position between Ralf Schumacher, Michael's brother, in the Williams BMW. Out of the pits goes Jos Verstappen in 16th position in the Arrows, and Rubens Barrichello there in 5th position, the man who won the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim so brilliantly from 18th on the grid 2 weeks ago to move within 10 points of the World Championship lead. Cannot do anything about Ralf Schumacher.
Ferrari mechanics in the pit lane, and will McLaren respond to that? There you see it for yourself. So who is it for? We don't know which one of the 2 Ferraris. It could be to try to launch Barrichello past the Williams of Schumacher, bring him in early and give him a clear piece of track. They can calculate where Rubens would rejoin the racetrack, if there's any cars, if there's any traffic at that point of the race, and we'll see if it is indeed Rubens coming in this lap, or whether they're choosing to bring, and it's Schumacher in the pits, and will McLaren respond immediately to that? So Schumacher actually had slightly less fuel than Häkkinen.
So there's a surprise, and I would expect Häkkinen to come in on the very next lap. It's a good stop, is it? Yes, it is. 7.3 seconds for Michael Schumacher, and that means to say that David Coulthard will be up into 2nd position, and indeed Ralf Schumacher and Barrichello go through before Michael Schumacher rejoins the race. So now Mika Häkkinen, who has not stopped, is leading. David Coulthard is up into second place, and he has not stopped, of course. David Coulthard is second, Ralf Schumacher is third, Barrichello is fourth, and down to fifth position as a result of his stop goes Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher better hope that brother Ralf is not on a long two-stopper or indeed a one-stopper, because for sure Barrichello will get out of his way pretty quickly in the sister Ferrari, but will Ralf Schumacher move out of the way for his brother? So, because Michael's going to be up behind them incredibly quickly as the Minardi rejoins the track.
Well, they're great friends out of the cars, the two Schumachers, but Ralf will not give way to Michael just because he's his brother. We've seen that in the past, notably when Ralf Schumacher was driving for Jordan and he had a tremendous scrap with his brother in the Ferrari in the Austrian Grand Prix. Refused to give way. Why should he? He was ahead and he made Michael fight his way past.
Yes, Johnny Herbert in for a stop. We've seen Fisichella drive straight into the garage and retire from the race. I would imagine he'll talk about handling problems, it would seem, and a long stop there for Johnny Herbert. And look, Barrichello will yield. Barrichello will yield and let Michael take the line into the first corner. And where is Ralf Schumacher? He's in the pit. That's good news for Michael. Ralf is on a two-stopper, so now Michael's got some clear track to make the most of those new tyres.
So now, when is Mika Häkkinen coming in? He is 18.18 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, and he was 32 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. That should allow him plenty of time to come in, stop, take on more fuel, take on 4 new wheels and tyres and still get back out in the lead. It should do, but will it? He's still staying out on lap 29 out of 77 as Schumacher ahead of Barrichello, and with the knowledge that his brother Ralf is not going to be in his way because he's been in the pits, hurries on.
This is for position, but it's not really a fight. They are on a different strategy, so it's understandable. It's the right thing to do. It's team play. There's a team championship. It's a team sport, and there's no point in Barrichello holding Schumacher up, who's faster anyway. But Michael, on the 3 or 4 corners I've watched that car so far this lap, has got horrendous understeer with a full tank of fuel.
And into the pits comes Rubens Barrichello, the second of the top 5 men, the third actually to come in, because the Ferrari comes to a standstill and those prongs in the ground are to touch the bottom of the car and release any electrical static to prevent the possibility of a fire in the pit lane. 6.7 seconds, that is 0.6 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher's stop.
That's a nightmare scenario there for Rubens as a BAR and a Minardi. And look, he slots in this time around in front of Ralf. So that has launched him in front of Ralf Schumacher, and he should be able to defend that position as he's getting back up to speed. So that worked out very well for Rubens Barrichello.
Indeed it did. A masterly bit of planning by the Ferrari team men, notably Ross Brawn on the pit lane. In comes Pedro Diniz from 11th place in the Sauber. We're on lap 30. Häkkinen leads Coulthard by 17 seconds. Michael Schumacher is third, 32 seconds behind. Mika Häkkinen stays out. My goodness, this is a fantastic drive because he's now on lap 30. He's getting on towards half distance. He still hasn't stopped. So he had a very heavy fuel load, not a very light fuel load. If he's one stopping, he'll come in on round about lap 38, and that would be amazing.
This is surprising everybody in the pit lane, with the possible exception of Häkkinen and his crew on his car, because he has not shown that kind of pace at any time this weekend. James, what can you tell us?
This is absolutely fascinating. You know, I described it as like a game of chess. I can tell you that McLaren are going to make a stop very soon. And hopefully I'm going to tell you before I finish which of the 2 cars it's going to be. Look at this as a scenario, guys. Schumacher comes in on lap 27, stationary for 7.3 seconds. Now, normally that's 41 kilos of fuel have gone in. If that was a planned stop, he'd be coming back in again around lap 53 as the McLaren guys go onto the apron. So there will be a stop shortly. But what if there was some fuel left in the Ferrari already? What if Michael's going to run longer than lap 53? And what if he's trying to box him in? What if Ferrari are trying to box in McLaren by short fueling Barrichello? He will be in front, you see, of Häkkinen when he rejoins. That's why they're bringing Häkkinen in now. I've described it as a chess game. Watch these pieces move.
Well, here is Häkkinen anyway. James, I don't know where you are, but give me a shout if you're with Häkkinen.
He comes. In he comes, new tyres going on. Ferrari have stuck with the policy of scrub fronts. McLaren have gone the opposite way. That's a very short fuel though to get him out in front of Barrichello. Has it worked?
Well, we'll see. 7 seconds. That's the shortest of the... No, Barrichello was only 6.7 seconds. And 80 miles an hour is the pit lane speed limit. The track is clear. There is Fisichella coming towards us. Of course, he is well down the field. And here is the Ferrari coming down into turn 1, and it is Michael Schumacher. So the gap has come down considerably, but not nearly enough to satisfy Michael Schumacher, locking up his left front, still in 3rd position behind David Coulthard, who is now the fastest man on the track.
Coulthard leads the race because he would have overtaken Hakkinen. Hakkinen had a 17.6-second lead before he made the stop, so Coulthard will be leading the race now, but is in this lap. So the strategies are pretty similar as we expected. It's just an incredible pace from Hakkinen. I wondered if Coulthard might be going very, very long, but he's not. And, well, I think Coulthard clan plus certainly Ferrari are going to be absolutely amazed by the pace that Hakkinen's been able to run and still not pit until the end of lap 30.
Yes, and at the end of the previous lap, as David Coulthard it turns into the pit lane, there was only 16 seconds between him and Michael Schumacher. So Mika Hakkinen is back in the lead, no doubt about that. Onto the pit lane speed limiter comes David Coulthard, up to a standstill. Under him go the jacks, up goes the car, off come the wheels, in goes the fuel filler, and the time stop for David Coulthard, 6.9 seconds, an excellent stop.
Yeah, we've seen 4 brilliant pit stops there by Ferrari and McLaren, and it's going to really end up status quo, pretty much where it all started as the first pit stop was made by the front runners of Michael Schumacher. So the only man, yes, Button has also stopped now. So everybody down to Alexander Wurz in 8th place has made their first stop.
So what are the positions? Lap 33 out of 77 as you watch Rubens Barrichello. David Coulthard has been in, so Mika Hakkinen is back in the lead, and Rubens Barrichello has got it all to do in the Ferrari. He is ahead of the BAR there on the track. And there is Mika Hakkinen. Well, it's looking like another fantastic race for the Finn.
Look at this lap. Looks like another fantastic lap he's on, Murray. Look, he's got 2 fastest sections of the race so far. If he gets a good run through the last corner, it could even be in a 1:19 or something. And remember, we know he's just got some fuel dumped on board 2 or 3 laps back. So over the line comes Hakkinen with a 1:20.0 as it happens. That is absolutely amazing.
7/10 of a second faster than Coulthard's fastest lap last year. The fastest lap ever, incidentally. Nigel Mansell, 1992, in the 3.5 litre Williams with the all singing and all dancing specification. That was 1:18.3, and Hakkinen's only 1.7 seconds slower than that. He's leading the race. Michael Schumacher, that you're looking at, as you see, is in 2nd place. David Coulthard, as a result of that pit stop, is down into 3rd position. Frentzen is up into 4th place. He's stopped. He's ahead, 5th position. Rubens Barrichello is in 4th position. And now Ralf Schumacher is in 5th place. Frentzen 6th. Jenson Button, only 1 place off the World Championship points, is in 7th place ahead of Wurz. Irvine is still 9th in the Jaguar, and Jarno Trulli is 10th.
Yes, the loser in the pit stops with Eddie Irvine. He is in 8th now. Wurz has finally had to make that first stop, so Irvine now slipping back behind Jenson Button after the pit stops. Button just 2.7 seconds behind Frentzen in 6th place.
Yeah, another terrific race by Jenson Button. He was in fourth position at the Hockenheim Ring in Germany 2 weeks ago, and again he is at the Hungaro Ring for the first time. I say again, virtually every circuit that Jenson has been to this year is a first-timer. It is a first-timer for Formula One, of course, because it's his first season in Grand Prix racing. But this Hungaro Ring is not the easiest circuit in the world to learn. There is David Coulthard, 3.6 seconds now behind Michael Schumacher in 2nd place. And there is the German.
Yes, no traffic to come into play on that last lap, and Coulthard took 1.2 seconds out of Michael Schumacher.
Well, I'm just doing a little mental arithmetic while I talk to you. I think it is fair to start talking about the World Championship now. If Mika Häkkinen wins this race, he would be on 64 World Championship points, and Michael Schumacher, if he finishes in second position, would be on 62. So it would still be a 2-point gap between the two of them, but the positions would be reversed, and for the first time Mika Häkkinen would have taken the World Championship lead from Michael Schumacher, who's led it from the first race of the year in Australia right up to the last one before this in Germany 2 weeks ago. But as Martin said earlier on, there's still a long way to go. We still haven't gone the full half distance in this race. We're on lap 36 out of 77, and you see the second and third men. Now the fourth man is Rubens Barrichello. He's 18 seconds behind Coulthard, that you see exiting turn 2 now in the silver and black McLaren, turn into turn 3, and Barrichello is 5 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher. That is Fisichella out of the race in the Benetton. Giancarlo Fisichella. Now this could well change things in the Constructors' Championship, because Benetton are in 4th position, only 6 points ahead of the BAR team. But come to think of it, it won't, because Villeneuve is 15th in the BAR, Zonta, his teammate, is 16th, so clearly they're not going to score points unless something very surprising happens here.
Yes, Fisichella, that's the second time he's retired from the race, actually. They're obviously trying to find out what his handling problems are, sending him back out and saying, try that, try that.
And trying that is David Coulthard, and trying means trying to catch Michael Schumacher. On the previous lap, he was 0.6 of a second faster than the Ferrari, so he's succeeding. Lap 37 out of 77 in Hungary. We've just had a third retirement. Both the Prosts out previously. Jean Alesi, the first retirement, then his teammate Nick Heidfeld. Now Giancarlo Fisichella in the Benetton, who's had all sorts of problems, has been in once, gone out again, has just come out and has retired from the race. There are 19 of the 22 starters still left in the event. We're on lap 37 and Mika Häkkinen is continuing to drive an absolute storm of a Grand Prix. 14 seconds ahead of Schumacher, and you can see how close David Coulthard is to the Ferrari, because there he is. In terms of time, it's about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, Coulthard now consistently faster than Schumacher the last 4 laps. And the man on a charge is Rubens Barrichello now, having cleared Ralf Schumacher's Williams in the pit stop. He's 18.9 seconds down the road from Coulthard, but the fastest man on the track, quite comfortably, last time around was Rubens Barrichello, 4th place man. But Schumacher, I believe, is definitely struggling on this set of tyres.
Now Barrichello is up to 4th as a result of a superb stop by the Ferrari team, and he rejoined the track just ahead of Ralf Schumacher's Williams BMW, which had been in front of him up to then. So Barrichello up to 4th, Ralf Schumacher down to 5th. In 6th position it's Frentzen. Button is in 7th place and catching the Jordan in the Williams BMW. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar is in 8th position. The second Jordan of Jarno Trulli is 9th, and Mika Sauber is in 10th position.
We've got a similar situation to last year. Häkkinen leading comfortably, Coulthard chasing the 2nd place Ferrari. Last year it was driven by Eddie Irvine. Schumacher having a broken leg at that time, but Coulthard beginning to close down just like he did last year onto Michael Schumacher, and we could see one of those classic efforts of Coulthard having a bumping session getting past Michael Schumacher, but he can catch him. Can he pass him? This is a tough racetrack to pass on, and Coulthard encountering a bit of traffic en route.
Yeah, it's the arrows which moves over and lets him through very courteously. Funny old business, this Formula One, you know. They put the cars away in perfect condition, and the next morning they come out, they have to make a lot of changes. Michael Schumacher went well enough in the warm-up this morning, and look at him now. He is 15 seconds behind the race leader, and this morning he was just 1/10 of a second slower than David Coulthard, who was fastest in the warm-up.
Yes, and Häkkinen was 1.2 seconds slower than the lot of them. And look, whilst he did have a lot of traffic in the warm-up, so maybe we didn't get a fully clear picture, but it was clear And do you remember the face Häkkinen had on in the early stages of qualifying yesterday, when he just couldn't, he was about 9th or 10th on the grid, couldn't find a time out of the car, and again pulled it out of the bag then, as he is indeed doing today. So
past the Minardi goes Michael Schumacher. There is Pedro de la Rosa exiting the pits in, for my money, the most effectively liveried car in the race, the Orange Arrows with its Supertech engine. And Pedro de la Rosa is way at the back of the field, of course, after he had that collision with Jacques Villeneuve at the beginning of the race. De la Rosa is 9th, he's been lapped twice, he's in 19th position. His teammate, Jos Verstappen, is 14th, 1 lap down, and we're on lap 39. So now we are into the second half of the Hungarian Grand Prix, and we've been running for over an hour now. So it's going to be, no, I'm sorry, we've been running 56 minutes to be exact, and I'm expecting this race to take about an hour and 3/4 to run its distance, as it did last year. The average speed is not going to be all that different, as David Coulthard looks to close, and then he's got to try and get past Michael Schumacher, and that is going to be mighty difficult.
Yes, Coulthard catching Mazzacani, and who wasn't particularly helpful earlier on the lap before, so slipping back 4/10 on that. Yo-yoing around then, Schumacher and Coulthard. Meanwhile, Mika Häkkinen serenely up front, now 17.2 seconds clear.
Now, you're right, Martin, because Barrichello is edging up on David Coulthard, who is in 3rd place, and he's towing along Ralf Schumacher as well. Indeed, of the three, Schumacher, Ralf in the Williams BMW is in 5th place, is the fastest. And he's quite considerably faster than Rubens Barrichello. So we're going to have a big fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th positions before very much longer in this race.
Yes, you have to be careful how you read into those times each lap, because they're all encountering traffic now. We've still got 19 cars running in this race at the end of lap 40, so plenty of traffic for them all to encounter on a relatively short track.
Now just imagine the mental stresses. They've been driving like this for 57 minutes, 800 horsepower behind them, on the edge of adhesion all the time on their 4-groove tyres, which have deliberately got those grooves to reduce the amount of rubber contact on the ground, to lighten up the grip and prevent them going round corners too fast for safety reasons. And the heat in the cockpits will be enormous. They're fighting G-forces all the time, and they've still got another 45 minutes of it to go. Lap 41.
Yes, you were talking about Mansell's lap record in the low 1-minute 18s, but as you said, a 3.5-litre engine, much wider tyres, no grooves, much more aerodynamics available underneath the car, fully active suspension, and all sorts of other gizmos and goodies, traction control, all of that lot is gone, and they're still just 1.7 seconds slower.
But no offence, Nigel, of course.
No offence at all, I'm just saying it just shows you how they've improved other aspects of the car with regard to brakes, and they've managed to get nearly all the power back again, so these engines have possibly got more, although they're 500cc smaller, probably in fact more horsepower than Nigel had available to him back in 1992.
Yeah, and for my money, Nigel Mansell has still given me the most exciting moment ever in the Hungarian Grand Prix, when he pulled out in the Ferrari and passed Ayrton Senna's McLaren to take the lead and go on and win. And here today, you're watching Michael Schumacher come through to complete his 41st lap. Mika Häkkinen, of course, 17 seconds down the road on his 42nd lap. You can see where David Coulthard is in relation to Schumacher. He's still just over 2 seconds behind, and their lap times are identical to within 0.08 of a second. But Rubens Barrichello, certainly on the previous lap, was faster than both of them. Now I'm going to tell you what the gap is when Barrichello comes. Well, he's done so, and he's reduced it to under 20 seconds now, because he's lapping half a second faster than David Coulthard, and he's now lapping considerably quicker than Ralf Schumacher. So Barrichello is the man to watch. He's really flying. It would be nice to have a look at him, and look at Michael Schumacher there.
Yeah, well out of shape. Michael on the ragged edge, kept it all together. Probably cost him a little more than a tenth or two, but it's significant nonetheless. Michael on the limit, and still the car won't quite stay underneath him as he's trying to pull the gap on Coulthard. He doesn't want Coulthard anywhere near him at the next pit stop, which will be, I guess, around lap 58. And somehow he's got to stop Häkkinen wandering off into the distance. The gap still around 17.3 seconds.
As Mika Häkkinen there closes on the blue Benetton of Austrian Alexander Wurz, who's in 11th to lap him, and Louise is with Fisichella.
Giancarlo, you've been off the track, back on the track, in and out of the pits. What's been going on?
Yeah, I think the first time was a problem with the brake balance, and I was in braking, and I just lost the rear end. I think in braking, just the rear braking worked, and I lost the rear end and spun off. And then after that, I damaged quite a lot the car, and there was no possibility. Even after I stopped and we adjusted a little bit the car, but there was no way.
Thanks, Giancarlo.
Well, there's just a remote chance that Giancarlo Fisichella, who's out, and you've just heard, will lose his 5th place in the World Championship to Ralf Schumacher, but only if Ralf Schumacher can improve his position at the moment, because as Mika Häkkinen laps his unloved countryman, Mika Salo, unloved by Mika Häkkinen, that is. Salo in 10th position. Mika Häkkinen has lapped the Sauber now, and Fisichella, as I say, is in danger of losing his 5th position in the World Championship. Bags of traffic now for Häkkinen.
Yes, the next target, which he's just made his way past, is Trulli, who has yet to stop, the only driver not to pit. Trulli electing for a one-stop strategy. Obviously, not doing him much good. He's back in 9th place, and like everybody else, he's got to make one more stop during the race. As now, Eddie Irvine is the next target to be lapped, and he will have to move over. The blue flags will be waving. Eddie will let him take the inside line and try and minimise his own time loss. He does that. Häkkinen slices through and now targets Frentzen.
Yeah, well, you're seeing, I said last couple of weeks ago, you're seeing a great drive by Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari as he stormed up from 18th to win the race. You're seeing a superb drive by Mika Häkkinen, who's making everybody in front of him look pretty pedestrian. Watch him now with Marc Genet, the Spaniard in the Minardi. And he is in 17th position. He's being lapped for the 2nd time, has been lapped for the 2nd time by race leader Mika Häkkinen, coming through to complete his 44th lap, 16 seconds in the lead.
Look at that queue of cars. Häkkinen's just cleared the lot of them in one lap. If we get a view down the straight, you can see them all. He had the lot of them in one lap.
Well, you had a quick look inside the McLaren garage there. Marigold Newey, who is the wife of Adrian Newey, who's done so much to give McLaren their dominance in this race. Freely acknowledged to be the most brilliant and gifted designer of them all in Formula One. And here is Heinz Harold. Trulli.
Having made his
exiting the pit.
His one and only stop of the afternoon.
And he came in 11th position. He will be down to 13th place, maybe, yes, 13th place, maybe 12th. But anyway, Häkkinen continuing remorselessly now with a clear track in front of him to carve on. He'd lost about 1.5 seconds because of the traffic in the previous lap. Down to 14.5 seconds came his lead, but now, of course, Michael Schumacher, unseen by us, as the producer concentrates on the race leader because of the popularity of Mika Häkkinen with the enormous Finnish audience here at the Hungaroring, concentrates on the Finn. Now, Schumacher has got that traffic which Häkkinen has contended with to contend with himself, and it's going to extend Häkkinen's lead, I have no doubt about that.
So there are really only 2 key scraps on the racetrack. Eddie Irvine's fending off Salo from 8th and 9th, but the key ones are Coulthard, just 1.6 seconds now, 1.5 at the end of that lap now, behind Michael Schumacher, and Jenson Button, 3.6 behind Frentzen, who's in 6th and carrying that final World Championship point at the moment.
Yeah, and Jordan desperately need that World Championship point. They're 1 World Championship point behind BAR at the present moment. So if Frentzen can get up into 5th position, it would improve the Jordan team's position in the Constructors' Championship. If he can stay where he is, it would equal Jordan. but there's so much of a gap between Ferrari and McLaren together, and Williams, who are third in the Constructors' Championship against all expectations due to the newness of their BMW engine, that it's really very much a two-team race. James Allen?
Murray, there's no question David Coulthard is lining up here to pass Michael Schumacher in the second round of pit stops. I can tell you for the first race, in my living memory anyway, Adrian Newey has joined David Coulthard's race effort. So it's a straight split on both sides. Ron Dennis is working for Mika Häkkinen and Adrian Newey is working for Coulthard. They're going to try and get him past Schumacher. Now, in my calculations, Shuey's going to stop around lap 53, Häkkinen around lap 55 and Coulthard around lap 56. And I've been through all the possible conspiracy theories and clever twists. It seems to me that McLaren have them all covered. This is purely a damage limitation exercise for Ferrari now.
Yeah, and Michael Schumacher looks to me to be in real handling trouble with the Ferrari, in dramatic contrast to David Coulthard, whose McLaren looks as though it is on rails around most of the corners. And Coulthard has closed right up. You can see the gap now as the Ferrari and then the McLaren exits turn 3 and start up the climb towards turns 4 and 5. It's down to under 1.5 seconds now, and Coulthard is closing at the rate of a few hundredths of a second at the moment, but Michael Schumacher goes past the Minardi, gives him a slight breathing space as he goes through turns 6 and 7, the chicane at the top of the circuit, and on towards the drop down to the last corner.
Yes, once again struggling, Coulthard having a major problem to get past the Minardi, making life absolutely as difficult as he can there. Ridiculous, that's twice that's happened to Coulthard with the same car.
Yes, Martinet, the Spaniard, is normally pretty considerate and well-mannered on the circuit. I don't know if he didn't see Coulthard, he certainly should have done, and they are on lap 48 now.
Dunayev is on a stop-go penalty, so maybe his mind was into why have I got to come in again, what does my stop go for, and was not paying attention, but certainly cost Coulthard an awful lot of time in his attempts to get somewhere near Schumacher to be ready for this next round of pit stop, or punish any mistakes or any trip-ups. And the Ferrari mechanics are in the pit lane, so one of the Ferraris is due in anytime soon.
It cost Coulthard over a full second.
Barrichello, sorry Murray, Barrichello's in the pits. They short-fueled him to get him ahead of Ralf Schumacher. It worked, of course, didn't it? And now Rubens has had to stop extra early to be able to get in enough fuel to finish the race and try and keep himself ahead of Ralf. But it all shakes out at the end of the second lap of pit stop.
Shouldn't be a problem. He was over 11 seconds ahead of the Williams previously. So there goes the Jaguar through, and Barrichello, I'm pretty sure, has stayed ahead of Ralf Schumacher. He's out, and here is Michael Schumacher. We're on lap 48 now. David Coulthard is on a terrifically quick lap, fastest of all in the first sector, faster than he has been in the second sector. When I talk about sectors, I mean that this track, like all of them, is split up into 3 sectors for timing purposes.
Yes, so Coulthard's having to get back on it. He lost a lot of time there to Schumacher in the traffic, as you saw for yourself, and now comes over the line with a 1:20.6. So Coulthard now having to come back at Michael until they catch the next round of... and remember, Häkkinen, who's 16.5 seconds down the road, had a long queue to pass all at one time, and this pair have not come across that group yet.
Top 6, Mika Häkkinen, lap 49, 16 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who is 2 seconds ahead of Coulthard. Barrichello is 4th, Ralf Schumacher is 5th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 6th position. Well, it is lap 49 now, coming up towards 2/3 distance in this 77-lap race Hungarian Grand Prix, and McLaren at the present moment are on a potential 14 World Championship points, which would not only dramatically improve their chances of yet again winning the Constructors' Championship in the year 2000, but dramatically affecting Ferrari as well. P2 then, that's to Michael Schumacher, and it indicates that he is some 17 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen on lap 50, and he can see, I should think, David Coulthard in his mirrors. They're coming up towards tail-enders. That is the arrows in front of him. Schumacher will get through, Häkkinen will get through. It's Jos Verstappen, I think, in the arrows, but Schumacher is coming up behind in the Ferrari now as they turn into turn 4. Through on the inside he goes. This is where he had that battle with his brother Ralph in the Jordan a couple of years ago, and David Coulthard has yet to get past the arrows. He'll do it, of course. And Mika Häkkinen is again flying. He's already in this race made the fastest lap of the race on lap 33, and that was in a time of 1 minute 20.028. He's just gone round in 1:20.556, so he's astonishingly consistent. So lap 51, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Coulthard, McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, and then Ralf Schumacher in 4th position. Lap 51, and it's all about Schumachers now. Here is Michael Schumacher after his second pit stop, exiting the pit lane. David Coulthard has gone through into 2nd position, and the other Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, is in 4th place ahead of Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari. The battle which raged so long between the two of them is raging again.
Yes, and Ralf Schumacher in the pits as we speak, so we'll have to see. Here he is now coming in. Will he be able to get back on the track before Rubens Barrichello comes around? A close fight between Barrichello and Schumacher. Ferrari so desperately need... No, Barrichello just gone past our window. He will take the 4th position easily. So Barrichello will be in 4th. Häkkinen leads by 20.5 seconds. Coulthard is now 2nd. And Michael Schumacher, having made his 2nd stop, of course, is away down the road.
Well, there is Mika Häkkinen coming round to complete the lap just after Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW had rejoined the track ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's in 6th position. So the Williams BMW is continuing its absolutely incredible first season in Formula 1 racing.
Coulthard in the pit this time, so Coulthard in for his 2nd stop, and really he's not under pressure. I think Michael Schumacher had a good enough stop to make sure he stays ahead. 6.6. I don't think it'll be enough to get him ahead of Michael Schumacher. Watching out of the window, it's going to be close. There's Schumacher coming down the straight now. Can Coulthard get past the speed line? No, he cannot. He's going to slot in just behind. It didn't quite pay off for the McLaren team.
And that's how close it was. So Michael Schumacher in 2nd position, David Coulthard in 3rd position, as they were before. But the McLaren, of course, is closer to the Ferrari than it was. It was about 2 seconds behind.
You can see why these drivers get angry if they get held up. Genet, who ironically was on an in-lap for a stop-and-go penalty for ignoring the blue flags. You saw him hold Schumacher up, David Coulthard up very, very badly. And this is the result. That extra second has cost Coulthard the chance to get in there ahead of the Ferrari. It makes all of the difference. A couple of corners behind a back marker can spoil your race, and Michael Schumacher maintains track position.
And of course that would have given the McLaren team 16 World Championship points for 1st and 2nd places, as opposed to 14 for 1st and 3rd. And the car there was Jacques Villeneuve in the pits from 13th position in the BAR. We're on lap 53 out of 77, 24 laps still to go. No battle for the lead because Mika Häkkinen is way, way, way out in front. Nearly 25 seconds ahead of this terrific battle between Michael Schumacher, the twice world champion, and David Coulthard in the McLaren, 9 times a Grand Prix winner.
Coulthard's only chance, I think, of launching past the Ferrari will be in traffic, really. He's got to try and catch Michael wrong-footed, lapping some cars, but we know with the blue flag system, the majority of the cars more or less drive out of the way so as not to get involved. And I really don't see where Coulthard's got any extra speed to nudge up alongside Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Häkkinen's lead is 43.3 seconds, but of course he's yet to stop.
And Mika Häkkinen has lapped everybody up to Ralf Schumacher, who is in 6th position. Jenson Button in the 2nd of the Williams BMWs is only just out of the points. His teammate Ralf is 6th, Jenson Button is 7th. Häkkinen.
James.
Mika Häkkinen in the pit lane. There shouldn't be too much pressure on this. Everybody's doing a pretty slick job. These stops have all been earlier than scheduled, and it was started by Ferrari trying to get Michael in. I think they probably used that Genet situation. Maybe it was worth a try, I don't know. But it was certainly about 4 or 5 laps earlier than they would normally have brought him in, and it did work for Ferrari. It kept them ahead of Coulthard, and I have to say the McLaren guys are pretty depressed about it. They thought they'd done enough to get their man in front, but a nice job there on Häkkinen's car. He really is looking terrific today, isn't he?
And you just saw Pedro Diniz unlap himself by getting past the end of the pit lane as Mika Häkkinen came out. But the Finn will soon pass the Sauber again, and David Coulthard there is right on the gearbox of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari with another 24 laps, including the one that they are on to go. And something has got to give. Michael Schumacher under the most terrific pressure, a long way behind Mika Häkkinen, of course, the continued race leader. And this is the story of the event, because these two are some 29 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. It's the 2 Ferraris and the 2 McLarens occupying the first 4 places. Frentzen is now in 5th position ahead of Ralf Schumacher. There's only 5 seconds in between them, and Ralf Schumacher is going to be lapped by Mika Häkkinen eventually, I think, but Jenson Button is now unlapped. He is in 7th position, just 1 place off a potential World Championship point, and Jenson Button has already scored World Championship points 4 times this year in his first Grand Prix season. A terrific performance.
Both these drivers need that 2nd place. Coulthard can't afford to let Häkkinen, his teammate, gain 4 points on him, and Michael Schumacher wants to minimise, as James said earlier on, damage limitation. Häkkinen surprised everybody with his pace, not least Michael Schumacher. What he doesn't need is to lose those 6 points, so Schumi will be hanging on to those for grim death. But in fact, also, I don't think either of those 2 drivers can afford to take a big gamble and a big stab and defend those places too aggressively. They can't afford to lose a wheel against each other, as Häkkinen will just be sailing off with 10-point advantage.
And the great Formula 1 news is it really does look as though yet again the Drivers' World Championship is going to go down to the last race of the year, which for the first time is the Malaysian Grand Prix on October the 22nd. We've got Belgium in 2 weeks' time on the wonderful Spa circuit, and then the historic Monza circuit for the Italian Grand Prix, a first-timer at Indianapolis for the American Grand Prix at the end of September, then Japan and then Malaysia, and we've got the wonderful prospect of this Drivers' World Championship raging right to the end, raging as Schumacher and Coulthard are fighting for that 2nd position on the track.
Just to give you the gaps then of the top 4, now they've all made their final stop. Häkkinen at the end of lap 55 was 21.8 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is half a second ahead of David Coulthard, who is 29.2 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Frentzen in 5th has yet to stop.
Over the line they go. They're on lap 56 now. Look how evenly matched. The V10 Ferrari, and here in the pits, Ricardo Zonta, the Brazilian driver, who's losing his place in the BAR team at the end of this season to Olivier Panis, who is the brilliant French ex-Grand Prix Monaco winner of 1996 and is with the McLaren team, not as their test driver, because he's described as their 3rd driver. How many teams have got a previous Grand Prix winner as their test and 3rd driver? Well, McLaren have. Just one of the many indications of the incredible in-depth quality of the Woking team. And they're on lap 56 now. Well, Jenson Button is 12 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher. He's been in the pits for his 2nd stop and out of it. Now watch Schumacher. Coming towards us is Mika Häkkinen ahead of Johnny Herbert. Both the Jaguars are still running. Eddie Irvine is in 10th place, Johnny Herbert is 13th, and we've still only got those 3 retirements, the 2 Prosts of Alesi first, then Heidfeld, and Giancarlo Fisichella. There are 19 out of the 22 still running, as up behind the arrows come Schumacher, and Coulthard.
The bad news for Herbert in the Jaguar, he's now lapped twice, so Johnny down in 13th, but 2 laps, that's just incredible, isn't it? The pace of these Ferraris and McLarens to get that far ahead. I mean, Häkkinen's going to lap everybody. He's got button next on his list. He's probably going to lap everybody up to 4th or 5th. Oh, incredible.
Verstappen, I think, lost the place. I just tried to work out in my mind whether he was on the same lap. But anyway, as Schumacher and Coulthard moved through, Jos Verstappen moved over in the arrows and let them through. And into the pits comes the Jordan Mugen Honda of Heinz-Harald Frentzen from 5th position. Now, Ralf Schumacher should have got past him.
Yes, that is the last key pit stop of the afternoon, certainly scheduled pit stop anyway, and Ralf is long gone, so Frentzen will come out still in 6th place. Where was Jenson Button?
Yes, indeed. Well, he's out of the pits, and here is the battle for second. Schumacher and Coulthard tied together by that invisible piece of string, coming through to passing the pit lane, turning into the double right-hander at turn 14, the 180-degree bend, exiting it, building up to 180 miles an hour in 6th gear before they brake hard, go down through the gears from 6th to 3rd to about 80 miles an hour on the apex.
I agree with all of that, except they've got 7 gears now. 7 gears in both the Ferrari and the McLaren top gear, and smoking front tyre there of the back marker ahead. In fact, the back marker ahead must be Jarno Trulli, I would guess. Yeah,
it's certainly one of the Jordans. Very difficult to tell them apart. There's a red spot on the roll bar of Jarno Trulli's Jordan, but whether it's Frentzen or Trulli, we'll soon see on their 58th lap. So I'm pleased at the reliability in this race. The Prost season of misfortune goes from bad to worse, race by race. There are very strong rumours that the Prost team has been sold already to a new consortium. What they will make of it with the team in France, when Alain Prost himself is believed to have wanted to move it to Britain, because the infrastructure is so much stronger there, remains to be seen. I don't even know that the rumour is absolutely right. All I do know is that Alain Prost himself is in a state of virtual despair.
Yes, I believe it's Frentzen that they're homing in on, but look,
it's Trulli.
It is Trulli,
It really is Trulli.
Coulthard ever closer, just 4/10 of a second as Trulli gets out of the way. And, well, I'm amazed how easily Coulthard can stay that close in the slipstream. But surely there's no way. You've got to have, so much more horsepower to pull alongside down the straight, but it just isn't going to happen.
Well, Trulli in 8th position has just been lapped, as you saw, and Pedro Diniz behind him in the Sauber took the opportunity to close up a bit. Pedro Diniz going better than his teammate Mika Sala, who out-qualified him. I've been making some complimentary remarks about the Sauber recently. It's very much improved under its new designer, the Argentine Sergio Rinland, who's got a good team with him at Hinwil in Switzerland. They're dramatically improving the performance of the Sauber with its Ferrari Petronas labelled engine.
Just to tell you how far ahead Häkkinen is in real terms, it's 26.4 on the track, but I heard him, the very evocative sound of this McLaren. The exhaust pipes are very close together where they exit the car. Very, very distinctive sound. Häkkinen went past our comedy box a long time ago, and only now are we seeing Schumacher and Coulthard onto the pit straight. Still the gap is 26.4 seconds to the leader, and 0.6 between them that time over the timing beam.
David Coulthard has driven in 36 Grand Prix less than Michael Schumacher. He came into Formula One in the Williams team, and he still says that he's got the best ahead of him. He's getting better and better year by year. When you think that this is his 102nd Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher is on his 138th Grand Prix in this race, and he's finished on the podium in more than 50% of those events. Now, do you think David Coulthard has got a lot of potential to improve?
I don't think. I mean, they've all done enough Grand Prix. I don't think it makes any difference now at this stage. I know Coulthard will be very disappointed if he ends up third in this race. I think he'll feel he wasted an opportunity because he appeared to have the legs on this man Häkkinen through free practice and right through qualifying. Indeed, the warm-up this morning. So I think Coulthard will feel this is very much a lost opportunity. And Michael Schumacher, I think, will be somewhat shell-shocked, to say the least, when he gets out of the car at the end as Johnny Herbert recovers onto the track in the Jaguar from 13th position he's in as Jenson Button comes through to lap him, so Herbert having a nightmare.
And Jenson Button maintaining his progress. As I said earlier on, I have every reason to believe that he has now actually signed to drive for Benetton next year. I think the Williams team are going to be very sorry to see him go in a way, because they've got an embarrassment of riches with Juan Pablo Montoya, the Colombian driver who went so well in Formula 3000. That is Jacques Villeneuve going through and Johnny Herbert spinning. This is a replay. So Villeneuve moving up from 14th to 13th. I didn't see whether they touched.
No, I think Johnny just sort of fell off in sympathy to a certain extent. I think Jacques probably surprised him a little at the inside there, and it looked a touch unnecessary, that spin, but Johnny clearly just lost the back of the car when he least needed to, and swapped ends and was looking down the track.
So where are the battles on the track? Certainly not there. Mika Häkkinen on his 62nd lap. Well, here is one of the battles, the most notable battle, which has now been raging for a long, long time, the battle for second place between Schumacher and Coulthard as they come through to complete their 62nd lap out of 77 in total. There's a battle between Jarno Trulli and Pedro Diniz for 8th place on the grid, and Eddie Irvine is up there too, because Irvine in 10th position is actually closing slightly on Pedro Diniz in 9th place in the Sauber. There's a bit of a battle going on between Mika Salo in 11th place and Alexander Wurz in 12th position, and there's a battle going on. I think, in fact, Jos Verstappen will have got past Johnny Herbert now as a result of the Jaguar driver spin. And Verstappen will be up to 14th position in the Arrows. Here are the top 10 on lap 62 as you watch Rubens Barrichello, followed by Ricardo Zonta, and there, importantly, is Ralf Schumacher. Now, the first three are Häkkinen, Schumacher, Coulthard, McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, then Rubens Barrichello that you've been looking at in 4th position, and he is 28 seconds behind David Coulthard, only 5 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher's Williams BMW, which is gaining on him. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is also quick, 6th position in the Jordan. The team desperately need that point. 7th is Button in the Williams, 8th is Jarno Trulli in the second Jordan, 9th is Pedro Diniz, and right behind him, in 10th position, Eddie Irvine. So both Jaguars are still running, and look at David Coulthard now really harrying Michael Schumacher as Schumacher comes up to lap Johnny Herbert again. Johnny in the Jaguar into turn 1.
Well, one thing we know for sure, if he gets half a chance, we just know from 3 separate occasions previously, Coulthard just without any care whatsoever, total abandon almost, launches into the side of Schumacher. We saw it in Silverstone a couple of years ago, Malaysia last year, and of course in Manicourt this year, where Coulthard has no fear of having a go at Michael, but he's got to get close enough first. Michael is all too well aware of that, but neither of these pair can afford, as I said earlier, to be knocked out of this race with a broken suspension.
Well, you remember at the beginning of this season, McLaren clearly had a reliability problem. It's a very sophisticated and advanced packaging with all the elements tucked inside that enveloping streamlined bodywork, and they had trouble getting it all absolutely right, working properly. Well, they've certainly done that with a vengeance now. They've had, off the top of my head, 4 first and second places this year. They could well end up with a 5th one this year. And of course you get a maximum of 16 World Championship points if you do that. 10 for first position, 6 for second position. Schumacher coming through, crossing the grid. This is the start of his 64th lap, and down in the garages, James Allen has news for us.
Murray, I don't think this is going to make me very popular around Woking, but I think McLaren actually have made a mistake here. I think they've put Coulthard in a more risky position than they needed to. He came in, he could have done about another 6 laps on the fuel that he had. Michael Schumacher came in, and in instinctively McLaren reacted, and the following lap they brought Coulthard in. But I think he's got the pace in this car. He could have gone those 4 or 5 laps further and built himself a margin in order to stop. So I'm sure there'll be a post-mortem about it afterwards, but perhaps, although they've done a great job for Hakkinen at the front, maybe with DC they've not done such a good job.
Be fearless, James. Speak the truth where you find it. And so we're looking at Michael Schumacher now. And what can David do? I mean, he can just look for Schumacher coming up to a car he's about to lap and hope that there'll be some hesitation.
He's got 2 choices. One, he can try and penalise any mistakes or being wrong-footed on Michael Schumacher's part in the traffic, or he can bide his time through the middle of the lap, this section, stay as close as possible, and then get very close in the last corner, aerodynamics allowing, and the only serious overtaking opportunity is into the first corner. We saw Mansell take Senna there. We've seen Damon Hill took Michael Schumacher there in 1997 when the Arrows was on the better Bridgestone tyres. That's Diniz dropping out of the race, our 4th retirement in 65 laps. Amazing reliability. But so there is a way through into that first corner. It's a bit nip and tuck when you get there, but somehow you've got to stay close enough, Murray, in that last corner, and that's Coulthard's problem.
Yes, and of course we had that marvellous attack between Mansell and Senna at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona with sparks flying from underneath their cars. One of the most exciting television sequences I've ever seen of Formula One. And coming up behind the Williams now, and past them, past the Williams of it's Jenson Button down there in 7th position. He backed off and let them through, lost a bit of time, of course, in the process, and he was right up with Frentzen.
No, he's 36 seconds behind Frentzen. I've been watching his times a bit. He's dropped away quite badly, so Jenson, I think some kind of dramas inside that Williams. Remember, at one point he was just 2.7 behind Frentzen in 6th. He's still in 7th place, but now 36 seconds away, so Button struggling for whatever reason.
Yes, and it wasn't Frentzen either, it was the Minardi. So, absolutely together, carving their way through the traffic. Schumacher, Ferrari, Coulthard, McLaren, 2nd and 3rd places, absolutely nothing in it. They're closing up a bit on Mika Hakkinen at about the rate of 0.2 of a second a lap, but of course Mika Hakkinen has now got a 27-second lead. The victory for the 3rd time this year is very much in the bag for the Finn if he can just keep going the way he is going now. He's not going to have a problem with maintaining concentration. He's used to that. He's already won in Spain and Austria. He's had 5 second places this year. And if he finishes where he is now, Mika Hakkinen, who won the World Championship last year and in 1998, will be leading it in 2000.
Yes, and you can see why he'll be leading it. He finished 2nd in France, 1st in Austria, 2nd in Germany, the previous 3 Grand Prix, and that's the replay of Diniz dropping out of the race earlier on, and then Hakkinen leading again now. So it'll be a 1st, 2nd, 1st, something along those lines for Hakkinen that's thrust him into the lead in the championship. Nobody believed he could really attack for a 3rd consecutive season.
No, because as I say, the motivation, if you've done it twice, world champion, and of course they spend all the summer travelling from Grand Prix to Grand Prix, and when they're not racing in a Grand Prix, they are testing. They'll probably go straight from here to go test in another country tomorrow. When they're not racing or testing, they're doing sponsorship work. And in the winter, they're off to places like China and South America. It is a non-stop, very, very pressured life for Grand Prix drivers. So nice and gently and deliberately on lap 67 in this 77-lap race as we come towards the closing stages of it. Here are the first 10. Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren looks as though he is certain to get his 3rd win of the year. He is 25 seconds ahead of the battle that you are looking at between Michael Schumacher's Ferrari and David Coulthard's McLaren. And they, you can see the gap between them, are some 28 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari 4th position. So once again, the two top teams, McLaren and Ferrari, are dominating the Grand Prix. Nowadays, if you're not in the Ferrari team or the McLaren team, provided they all finish, the best you can hope for is a 5th or 6th place, which is why it makes points so valuable for the non-Ferrari and McLaren teams. Well, the leader of those at the present moment is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, and Ralph's already had a 3rd place this year and a couple of 4th places, a couple of 5th places, so he's been well and truly in the points, which is more than most people would have expected because of the newness of the BMW engine. Heinz-Harald Frentzen looks like getting a single World Championship point for Jordan. That would only be his 3rd points of the year. And Jarno Trulli, his teammate, is down in 8th position, having scored 4 times this year. It's not a good race for Jordan, frankly. Jenson Button has been lapped. Everybody up to Heinz-Harald Frentzen has been lapped. And Jenson Button is some 40 seconds behind Frentzen. Laps to go at the Hungaroring, and the sole question to be answered, I think, in this race is who is going to finish second, not who is going to finish first, because if Mika Häkkinen can keep going victoriously the way he is now, with nearly 23 seconds lead over these two, he's going to have his 3rd win of the year. And Johnny Herbert spins the Jaguar. Has he kept the engine running? He clearly has, from the way he's looking up the track. But the question is who is going to be second, because Schumacher and Coulthard are still absolutely together, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who is 4th, Ralf Schumacher, who is 5th, and Frentzen, who is 6th.
Terrifying place to spin where Johnny was, right on the racing line, just over the blind crest into turn 1. I think the Jaguar was sounding a little sick last time past, but Johnny, yeah, I think he's struggling a bit. Some kind of mechanical gremlins, or did he get a little nerve? I think he'd already lost the back end on the downshift, frankly, before the arrows got very close to the back of him. And then you're looking over a little blind crest there with Formula 1 cars hurtling towards you. Not a good place to be.
Good place to be for Mika Häkkinen on the Hungaroring at the moment. He's on his 70th lap. David Coulthard, I can't see him getting past Michael Schumacher unless the Ferrari has a problem or unless Schumacher is delayed by traffic.
Yes, I think in a straight fight, Coulthard's got the faster car at the moment of those two, but nowhere near fast enough to have any way of getting close enough to the Ferrari and having a go into a corner. He's probably got a 10th or 2 in his pocket, but with the aerodynamic effects, it's invisible, but he's just about the distance behind where he's getting the worst effects of the turbulent air from the Ferrari.
Don't know what Michael Schumacher's problem has been. He has clearly had one throughout the race, but if he can stay where he is, it's going to minimise it from his point of view. It means that the World Championship lead is going to change, but it means that instead of Schumacher being 2 points ahead of Häkkinen and Coulthard, he's going to be 2 points behind Häkkinen, with the Finn taking the World Championship lead for the first time. And David Coulthard still very much in the hunt, of course.
Yes, Johnny Herbert just went past the commentary box again with a 6-sounding engine. I think it was cutting out as much as anything, and that cutting is probably what spun him off in the first corner. It's not making a huge difference to his afternoon. He's back down in 14th place, 2 laps behind. Coulthard ever present in Schumacher's mirrors, 0.5 of a second. Louise, what can you tell us?
I'm having a fairly quiet afternoon down here in the pits. Amazing reliability, very few cars gone out. I've just been to check up what's happening with Jenson. He does have a problem. He's got a problem with his engine. He's not able to run at full power. Now, the team are confident that he will make it to the end of the race without any problem, but he is dropping time, and Trulli has picked up on this. He's suddenly upped his pace. Trulli's going to be pushing him hard to try and get that place off him.
Well, it's one of the few places in the top 10 that Jenson Button hasn't had at the present moment in this superb debut year in Grand Prix racing. He's had a 6th place, he's had an 8th place, he's in 7th position at the present moment. Is Frentzen going to catch him? Well, I don't think so at the present moment, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Johnny Herbert has stopped. Johnny Herbert is out of the race, so unfortunately, finally that engine has given up. Johnny dropping out of 14th place. The sister Jaguar, Eddie Irvine, having a quiet afternoon after that excellent start in 9th place.
So we're on lap 72 now, and the drivers will know it. They're in touch with their pits and garages through the wireless, and they're getting boards as well. Some people say to me, why do they have a board as well as the radio?
Sometimes the radio fails, you don't hear it. It's good confirmation. The one thing you never see on your pit board is how many laps to go before you stop, and that's obvious, of course, so you're not telling the teams you're racing with when you're planning how your strategy is running and when you're planning to come in. So they give you position, your position, and how far anybody is in front of you and behind you.
Well, there's 5 laps to go as far as the leaders are concerned. First, second and third, McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, Hakkinen, Schumacher, Coulthard. Hakkinen's lead down to under 20 seconds, nothing to worry about from his point of view. Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari on his way to 3 World Championship points for 4th position. Ralf Schumacher in 5th place in the Williams BMW, 2 World Championship points. Frentzen is 6th, Button is 7th. Trulli in the second Jordan is still catching Jenson Button at the rate of about half a second a lap, and he's some 2.5 seconds behind the Williams, so it's going to be a very, very close thing for 7th position.
I think Michael's just pacing himself now to make sure he makes no mistakes, keep the car on the very narrow line that there is around this circuit, and not give Coulthard a glimmer of a hope, but he'll still have to be pressing on.
Yeah, it's a very light, sandy soil here in Hungary, and this part of Hungary, and you get an enormous amount of dust. You can see from the lighter parts of the circuit that there is still dust in amongst the tarmac, and the circuit gets quicker and quicker and more rubbered up as the racing laps go by. On Friday, it's very bad news indeed, because there hasn't been any racing here for a full year. And typically in the first training session, the first practice session on Friday, everybody waits for everybody else to go out and wear their tyres out first. But then as the rubber goes down, the lap times come down and the lap speeds go up. And bang! What was that? That was one of the Minardis, and it is the Ford V10 engine which has let go. And it's Mazzacane, the Argentine driver, down from 16th position. That's only the 5th retirement of the race. The 2 Prosts, Fisichella, Pedro Diniz, who stopped some time ago, and now Mazzacane, and David Coulthard pressing like mad.
So I wonder if there's any oil down on turn 13 there. Most of the oil's being burnt quite clearly there as Mazzacane makes his way around to the exit of the turn, and clearly it doesn't appear to be dropping any fluid, just sending it burned out of the exhaust pipe. But the tyres get very heavily worn in all the Grand Prix. They're virtually slicked at the end, and that's going to be dramas for next season. Yeah. Michelin are coming in and they're saying, we want a clear understanding. Do these tyres have to have grooves in them or not at the end of a race? It's fine at the moment, everybody's running on Bridgestones, and you can't really complain, everybody's got the same opportunity. But I can see a lot of fuss coming next year if cars get to the end of the race and effectively the grooves are worn down, the cars are running on slick tyres. There's going to be some aggro.
Well, just 3 laps to go at the end of this one, and Schumacher is making real inroads into Hakkinen's lead now. But I'm sure that's as a result of Hakkinen slowing down rather than Schumacher speeding up. On the previous lap, Schumacher was 2 seconds, and of course David Coulthard, 2 seconds faster than Mika Hakkinen, as a result of which the lead of Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren has come down to about 17 seconds.
Yes, and Button's got a problem to defend 7th place. Jarno Trulli now just a few tenths of a second behind him. Not on your screen, but Button under pressure to keep 7th place as Hakkinen. Motors on, I'm sure you're right, Mario, now 1 minute 24.7 on that lap. Very, very slow from Mika Hakkinen, but I'm sure he's just cruising around now, protecting the car. He has such a large lead.
And so it is all down to David Coulthard as far as McLaren is concerned. They'll be more than happy with yet another victory for Mika Häkkinen. It'll be his third of the year. David Coulthard has already had 3. So it's going to be the 6th McLaren win this year in this, the 12th race of the 2000 season. And of course Michael Schumacher has won 5 times, Rubens Barrichello has won 5 times. So it shows you with 6 wins each how very, very well matched the McLaren and the Ferrari cars are. So they've dominated victories. No other team has had a sniff of a victory in the year 2000. And here is Jarno Trulli on the right, darting out from behind Jenson Button's Williams to move ahead and up into 7th position. So now the Jordans are 6th, Frentzen, and 7th Trulli, and Trulli has been lapped.
Yes, it was a clear pass on the straight, and as Louise said, he was struggling, Jenson Button struggling to get full engine power. And well, we saw it clearly for ourselves, didn't we? Truly, literally just drove past him in what is a very short pit straight.
Mika Häkkinen on his 76th lap, coming towards us, the Ferrari. Very much changed from last year's, incidentally, to the casual onlooker. It looks virtually identical, but the nose configuration is different, the side pods are different, the diffuser is different, the rear wings are different. There's a change in the driving position, the engine has got a lot of changes to it, and its performance this year, its much improved performance, is down not to Michael Schumacher, and it's not down to Ross Brawn, it's down to a man we mention very seldom, South African Rory Byrne, the ex-designer of the Tolman and Benetton teams, who moved with Ross Brawn to Ferrari and has helped bring them back to the top. Well done, Rory Byrne.
Yes, Coulthard still 5-6 tenths behind. Jenson Button's got a problem down the field. He'll now have Eddie Irvine lining up to pass him on the pit straight. He may well lose that 8th position, but no points then in store for Jenson Button. Johnny Herbert out of the race, and for the British fans, Coulthard still up there clearly in 3rd place, and he can do nothing about this man, Michael Schumacher. Schumacher fighting the car, oversteering into turn 13, still not losing any time, still managing to stay very much on the grippy part of the circuit. It's little more than 2 car widths wide, the track in effect around here. Michael then wrestling the Ferrari for those hard-earned 6 points. He needs to stay in touch with Häkkinen in points, Murray, doesn't he?
He does indeed, and here is Mika Häkkinen on potentially his victorious last lap in his 140th Grand Prix, which would give him his 17th career win and his 3rd win of the year. Mika Häkkinen started from 3rd on the grid. He was absolutely magnificent at the start by taking the lead at the first corner, just as he did at Hockenheim in Germany 2 weeks ago, by diving between the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher and his teammate David Coulthard's McLaren. It's been a brilliant, brilliant copybook victory for Mika Häkkinen, who is almost home.
Yes, but all the signs of the weekend was once he had that now typical start of his, he would then be under pressure from Schumacher and Coulthard, but he just waltzed. It took him about 3 laps to find some grip and some confidence. He's been changing that car constantly through the weekend, and then he just took off, didn't he, with a series of laps that they couldn't even begin to look at.
Mika Häkkinen exits the last turn at the Hungaroring, crosses the line and wins the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2000, his 3rd win of the year, with Michael Schumacher 2nd for Ferrari, reducing the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen a bit by staying ahead of David Coulthard, and we look at Rubens Barrichello. So the reliability of both the Ferraris and both the McLarens has made things impossible for any other team to get on the podium. The first 3 places, the top non-Ferrari man is going to be Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, and better than that he could not have hoped to do.
So Häkkinen scored 32 points out of a possible 40 in the last 4 Grand Prix, Murray. That's pretty much what you'd call a World Championship charge, isn't it? And, well, who can stop him? He's got so much confidence from the last 2 years, knowing he can pull it out of the bag at the end, and he leaps into the lead of the championship with a performance that was just mesmerising.
Yeah, and there's still only 6 World Championship points between the top 3. Mika Häkkinen moves into the lead of the World Championship by displacing Michael Schumacher, who's down to second place, and David Coulthard is still very much in for a shout of the World Championship because he's only 6 points behind Mika Häkkinen, and there are still 50 potential World Championship points to be won.
Yes, and when Coulthard sees that 6 points when it's all listed in front of him, he'll think about Brazil, where he lost those 6 points. So, but I think this is pretty much the end of Barrichello's championship charge this afternoon in many ways. He's 44 seconds off the lead, off of Häkkinen as he went over the line. But Barrichello now, crucially, 13 points behind Michael Schumacher. And I think that will prevent him, unless something bizarre happens in the next 2 races, will prevent him having to do anything other than support Schumacher.
Well, it's been a great day for the Woking team, for McLaren, because they, I think, move into the lead in the Constructors' Championship, as well as having Mika Häkkinen take the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Incidentally, I hypothesised that Fisichella might lose his 5th place to Ralf Schumacher. He hasn't, but he's only 2 points ahead. And listen to the enormous finish content at the grandstand here, going mad with delight, blowing their air horns, waving their flags, because their man, Mika Häkkinen, has won in Hungary in front of them in their enormous numbers.
Yes, if Mika Häkkinen ever wins this race in a Ferrari, you'll need earplugs to be in the crowd, not in the racing cars, because everybody outside in our grandstands have either got red caps on or they're waving the Finnish flag.
The Hungarian Grand Prix, you're looking at the winner now. He finished 7.9 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. There he is, which showed how much Mika Häkkinen slowed down on the last lap. Schumacher just half a second ahead of David Coulthard, but that made 2 World Championship points difference, which may make all the difference in the end.
Hiszen most először a McLaren is átvette a vezetésnek pedig a csapatversenyben 112 pontjukkal, a 111 pontjukkal.
Michael Schumacher, having been congratulated by David Coulthard, who is led away by Ron Dennis. Michael has a quick look at the back of the McLaren. It's about the only opportunity he gets to do that, of course, off the racetrack in action. And the totally predictable course invasion has begun.
Not just the fact that Häkkinen beat him that's going to make Michael pretty unhappy about this race. It's by how much, how easily Häkkinen was able to build and maintain that lead. I mean, it was only 7.9 on the line. Häkkinen gave up 20 seconds in the last few laps, just cruising around, protecting the car. He could afford to do that. And Michael's going to be shocked at this one. 5 races to go, and Häkkinen has thrashed him, basically, to take the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yes, Schumacher, who joined Ferrari in 1996 and regarded it as a supreme challenge to try to bring the Italian team back to the top again, having finished second in the World Championship for Ferrari 3 times, one of them he got lost incidentally, must be getting a bit worried now, because there is no doubt, as Martin has just pointed out, and as very happy Ron Dennis may well be talking to Mika Häkkinen about, that McLaren have well and truly got their competitive act against Ferrari together. Oh, now that gives you an indication. That's Mark Alman, who is Mika's trainer, who's pouring the water over him, who's just got married to a Finnish girl, incidentally, having learned the Finnish language from Mika and Erja Häkkinen, and that's no mean achievement, I can tell you. Mika Häkkinen with Pasquale Ladanu moves into the area now to be weighed, as they all are.
Good forward planning there for Mark to have a bucket of water in his hand. That's something they must have organised before the race.
For the podium ceremony in a few moments' time. Mika looking pretty fresh.
Jensen, Mika Häkkinen out of the car, embraced by Ron Dennis, the boss of McLaren, who sees his man yet again win a race for the Woking team, and by doing so put himself, Mika Häkkinen, to the delight of the vast Finnish content here in the crowd, into the lead of the Drivers' Championship, and McLaren take the lead in the Constructors' Championship. Mika Häkkinen makes his way up to the podium, out of our sight, and any moment now he will be emerging. Look at those Finnish flags, There were 17,000 Finns here last year. I have no reason to believe that there are any less this year, because Budapest has been absolutely swarming with them in the evenings as they vociferously chant in support of their man Mika Häkkinen.
Jenson Button did indeed lose out to Eddie Irvine on the last lap, so Irvine came in 8th, Jenson Button 9th.
Nothing to be ashamed about Jenson Button. He ran a very strong 7th with the possibility of being in the points yet again. As you heard, he had an engine problem. He qualified, was it 8th on the grid, in spite of not having the special qualifying BMW engine that his teammate Ralf Schumacher had to take him up to 4th on the grid. So, wonderful race for McLaren, wonderful race for Mika Häkkinen. There is the indication up onto the podium and the two-fisted salute from the Finn. You can hear the noise in the background from his supporters. H-A-K-K-I-N-E-N, they spell on their smocks. And here is the Finnish national anthem. Positively animated Mika Häkkinen, taking his time maybe from Rubens Barrichello in Germany 2 weeks ago. So the Finnish national anthem for him, and for McLaren, the British national anthem. Hungarian Grand Prix, we have seen the Drivers' Championship lead change. We've seen McLaren take advantage of Ferrari, and they lead the Constructors' Championship by a single point. And there are still the races in Belgium, Italy, America, Japan and Malaysia to go. It is still all there, and very much so to be played for. Ron Dennis triumphantly waves the Constructors' Trophy for the victory here in Hungary. Michael Schumacher brandishes the 2nd place trophy to the crowd. Mika Häkkinen's marvellous trophy is at his feet. And now David Coulthard has got another one to take home to his apartment in Monaco. Or maybe it'll go to Scotland. I can't imagine that with all the trophies he's won, there is enough room for them in the Principality. And now, the memorable champagne time in Hungary.